Welcome to Thriving the Future podcast, where we're finding positive solutions to thrive in the tough times ahead.
Episode 27. This is the third part of a series doing a detailed site survey for an off-grid property. So for our April workshop, we did a property walk of a friend's site, and he wanted us to brainstorm and give some feedback on how to set up a good off-grid property. So a little bit of background. It's a 3-acre lot in northeast Kansas. It's currently pasture with trees along the south side. The land slopes down to the south and the southeast. Most of the land is facing south. It's USDA Zone 6A. The owner's goal is to turn around the property in 5 to 6 years and retire, but in the meantime, do a proof of concept for off-grid with 2 shipping containers, put a roof between the two, and then a slab and enclose that so it's like a shop and an off-grid facility. As you're looking for land, there will either be water or there won't be water. And usually the water comes up to the edge of the property. If you're going to add water and it's not already there, then the city, the county, whatever, will charge you a lot of dollars for hooking up a meter. I mean, it can be $5,000. Out there, it would be $10,000 plus. You would have to run water all the way. You'd have to dig and trench all the way up to your house. To do that, we've already talked about the ground is very rocky. There's a rock shelf that's about 2 feet down. It'd be difficult to make a well. It'd be difficult to trench all that in. And then also, it would also be difficult for a septic tank and septic system because you'd have the laterals. One of the concerns that we talked about in the last episode is that this is a challenge because if you've got a rectangular piece of land, there's a certain amount of easement. You can't build right up to the fence, right? You're going to have to be back from the fence a little bit. There may be ground wires or something that goes across your land. You may have to situate your building, whatever you're going to have, and your driveway a certain way on your land. And once you put in the septic tank and the laterals, then you may end up with much less growing space than you thought. You can grow some things on top of the septic tank, but you're not going to grow edible plants on top of the septic tank in most cases. So that's a challenge. You can significantly decrease your growing area by doing that. So in this episode, we're going to take the third part of that, start diving a little bit more into what we learned from the site survey. We'll have a little bit of a clips of us walking the land and some of our plans, especially on the southeast facing slope that is facing towards the street or the road, because then we can increase curb appeal, which allows us to resell it. So we would put in perennials that would give good value that we can use for medicinals, we can use for food, we can use to feed chickens or whatever back at his main property. As well as make that curb appeal. So we'll dive into that in this episode. First, we'll play the clips of us doing the remaining walk in site survey, and then we'll dive into our discussion.
Putting in some things to kind of slow the runoff. Planting in these draws with a lot of perennial stuff down here up front. Some perennial flowers, some perennial bushes, so that we got that curb appeal that looks good directly to the street. And then infiltrate into that good medicinal perennial herbs. And one of the things we get is we get a terraced going up. We slow the water, the runoff. We keep the runoff off the driveway. We get something that looks nice, so we have resale value. We also have a place that you can start taking cuttings and plantings to your property in Missouri and get them established. Southwest corner, we need some quicker growing trees to create a little bit more privacy from the neighbor. Over in the northwest corner, we're talking the shipping container house thing. Right. The only thing I have not heard anybody discuss is where we're going to put a compost pile for the composting toilet. I think the main goal has become to increase property value.
Right.
Begin to explore what this new retired lifestyle will be like, so that he is ready to implement when he moves.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. I think that's an excellent way to recover the investment in the property.
Yeah, definitely.
And so since he's mostly living in town, I think we had 3 to 4 hours on a weekend or so.
Correct.
Time on property.
Mm-hmm.
We need, because we have good drainage.
Mm-hmm.
We have good rainfall in the spring. We have a dry winter and a dry summer. We need some plants that are hardier because they're not going to get watered. And gardening is not really a deal.
Sure.
Foraging plants that can be taken back to chickens and rabbits, that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
We need a lot of perennials.
Right.
Because we don't want to spend time tilling a garden, and when you got rocky and hardly any soil, you don't want to be disturbing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And on the hilltop, that's kind of a problem as well.
Right.
So perennials, I think, are the name of the game. I think that we need to also create curb appeal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're looking at resale value. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to keep the house area clear. The perfect place to build the house is clearly seen. Where to put the septic field is clean. So we're going to keep that clean. Mm-hmm. We're not going to plant trees there, even though we could now, right? We're not going to put a building that would be more of a shop building or a storage building or a shed where the house is going to go. We're not going to cause problems. We're going to create and design and kind of just sketch in desire for the property.
Mm-hmm. And since nobody's watering all the time, then you probably don't want to put in like apples or some sort of thing that needs irrigation unless you're going to put in a pretty elaborate swale system. And you wouldn't want to run animals if he's only out there a couple days a week.
Right. So we have some.
I mean, you could, but you know, your animals are not going to get daily care, right?
But you could, but it's irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's your animals that you are eating,
mm-hmm.
or you are harvesting, you want them to have a better life than when you're doing it for other people to eat it.
Correct.
And it changes your perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that would put animals on there and check them every couple days.
Yeah.
Even most of the guys I know around here who have big acreage and everything like that, they check on the animals a couple times a day.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You just have to. It's part of the deal.
Yeah, it's part of the deal. And if you're going to eat those animals, then it even becomes more important.
You want it to be higher even then.
Right.
And if you have a conscience and you're going to be selling those to the greater market, you are going to take care of it as if you were the one that was going to consume it, because it's not just about the other people. It's about that animal's life.
Right. So we saw that he dug a hole to see what it looked like and how far down it was. Over less than a year time, the hole significantly filled in. So there's erosion coming off of the top of the hill. We want to slow that down, either by putting in some sort of swale system or by putting in hugel mounds of some sort or terracing to some extent to kind of slow that down so it doesn't just all send soil and water into the creek or road.
Right. So we need to stabilize soil, which means not having bare soil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's your recommendation in that?
So since it slopes the way it slopes down to the road, and we kind of got that nice curve.
Yeah.
That you'll see in the pictures. I think that what we want to do is in that steep part up front, we want to put in some kind of terracing. We'll talk about the ways we might do that. Given the water situation and the time on property, we want to focus on perennial.
Right.
We want to focus on some things that look good during different times of the year, and we want it to look like it's well taken care of and easy to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably really want to document well what it is we put in there and what it is and how it is, so that anyone coming to look at the property can flip through a book and they can go, oh, this plant is artichoke. It comes up and it looks like this, and this is what I can do with it, right? If artichoke was one of the plants. If it was asparagus, if it was rhubarb, if it was that. And it's located on the map here right now, right? Those things make that easier to sell.
Right.
Because you're selling somebody the dream that they can go down there and they can make a rhubarb pie. Whether they ever do it, whether they even seriously mean it, they will see rhubarb on there. They will go, pie, rhubarb pie. I always wanted to make a rhubarb pie, whether they ever did or not.
Yeah.
because that's the kind of person who's going to be looking for this property.
Right. Yeah, you're selling a story.
Right. The same with, we can put in a lot of medicinal perennial herbs. This set of beds, if we focus on perennials, in the 3 to 5 year period, they will need to be divided or split at least once, most of them. And that means you have something you can give to other friends. You have plants you can take with you to another property, or you have plants to sell. All good things. So one of the things I went and did today, but didn't get done before the podcast, is I went and looked up in a PDF I got from Postmeyer's Perennial Vegetable Production book and DVD. Right. And because perennial vegetables is something everybody could eat, right? And it's more edible than medicinal and that, and it's another thing that is something I want to get doing more of, right? So I'm going to read his definition of perennial vegetables, then we'll go down through the chart and we'll look at how I look at one of those charts and pick some things out to start experimenting with, right?
Right.
The crops included in this global inventory all fit my definition of perennial vegetables. These are plants that living 3 or more years, used as a vegetable, not as a novelty crop or a culinary herb, and not destroyed by harvesting. Some of these, the root crops, are replant perennials. And you harvest some and then you replant some, right?
Sure.
Some portion is replanted of the same or another whole, keeping the plant alive to produce again the following year. By any vegetable, I mean leaves, leaf stalks, shoots, flowers, flower buds. Flower buds, he's got broccolis in parentheses here. Tubers, corms, rhizomes, roots, pods, beans, and other above or below ground parts that are eaten raw or cooked as a meal or a side dish.
What's a corm?
I am not exactly sure. I was looking.
Okay.
I should know that.
That's my vocabulary word for the day.
I'm wondering if that's more like the peanuts and like the ground nuts. Because it's between tubers, rhizomes, and roots, right? So.
Okay.
It makes me think it's not quite a tuber, or it's not stringy like a root, or it's not.
And they don't include a dessert fruit like a strawberry, right? So strawberry.
Right. In cases of fruits, I mean fruits that are cooked and eaten as a meal or side dish. Eggplant, not fruit desserts like strawberries. Yeah. So.
Okay.
And he split this chart up into climate zone, species, region of origin, and things like that, right? Your normal sun, shade, and all that.
Okay. So give us some examples here.
So right here I've got certain pages. I've got the extreme cold climate he has, which is USDA zones 1 through 3.
Okay.
He's got some other international information for people like Shudra. So we'll say sunset zones 1, 44, and 45.
Right.
Note that heavy snow cover can provide excellent insulation in this zone, but short season and lack of hot summers are a serious limiting factor.
Okay.
I included these because that meets our stuff. They will survive our frost. This is of no use to people like our friend Shudra in Australia. I mean, not cold temperate. We are, this would be USDA zones 4 to 7,
That's
sunset zones 4 to 6, 6 to 11, 32, and 43. This is a large, highly populated region covering most of the eastern and central United States, as well as the warmer parts of Canada. Much of Europe and Asia, and some parts of temperate South Africa are in this climate.
Okay.
So
what kind of stuff for our area? So not the extreme cold, but the temperate.
I think we're going to cover some of the extreme cold because they will survive in our area.
Okay.
Because there's things like Maximilian Sunflower, which is North America. It's a giant herb. You got the roots and the seeds are edible. It likes sun. It likes dry to mesic, but it does it in a short season. So this is a shorter season sunflower than a lot of the sunflowers.
Maximilian?
Yes.
What's mesic mean, just for folks that...
So in the moisture we have dry, mesic, water, aquatic, and emergent. So dry is your drier things that don't need a lot of water. Mesic is closer to approaching needing a lot more water. So things that fall into dry to mesic would be kind of perfect for our climate.
So the Maximilian Sunflower would come back every year?
I think you'd be replanting seeds.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. We can look up more information on that, right? And
Sunchoke. I see sunchoke on there.
yeah, sunchokes on it. See, these are, and duckweed is on here in this category.
Right.
Ostrich fern, watercress, mountain sorrel. Rhubarb is in here, see?
Yeah.
So, that's growing all the time in our area. It's in this list because it will survive in this extreme cold, short season stuff, right?
Right.
Cattail is even in there, right? So this
cattail.
this is a list for our area, but it goes farther north as well.
Sure. Okay. What about
So
our
duckweed is not going to work for our friend Ken, right? It's not right. Sunchoke is an option, but it's mesic, right? So we're looking at it needs a little bit more water.
Mm-hmm.
So we could try it and see.
You plant sunchoke and you won't have a problem. It'll take off, and just make sure that you put it where you want it, because you'll have difficulty getting rid of it.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Okay.
But the mesic sunflower is a good one. One of the first ones here is wild onion. That one would be a good one.
Yeah.
This is the one I didn't know. I didn't know that showy and common milkweed have edible shoots, flowers, young leaves, and pods.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a really good one, because that's one that will flower, so it will look good.
Right.
It's usually used to attract in butterflies, and the monarchs nest in it, so that it's good ecologically. It's good for pollinators, and you can eat some of the young leaves, not kill it off. It's dividable. That'd be a great thing to have going, right?
Okay.
Then we got the ostrich fern, which is wet to mesic, so that's not going to work because that needs more water. Maybe down by the creek we can get some of that going, because that's,
Yeah, maybe so.
That's shade, that's what they like to be. Must be cooked is a note on that, so don't go eating that without.
Okay.
And so let's go to the cold temperate, which is more kind of our area. There's a perennial leek. It's from Eurasia.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is edible, but it's a perennial leek. So
Right.
I need to find out about that one.
Okay.
And then we got the walking onions, of course, which that is a perfect one for what we're talking about here, right?
Sure.
Because we're talking about doing these terraces. And with these terraces, we're going to end up with some places that are more dry, some places that are more shady, some places that are more sunny.
Right.
We have an area where water kind of drains off, where you put a berm to get the water to redirect and not go over the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And we can put in some of the wetter plants there as we build little they'd be kind of like temporary ponds or areas that
Rain
soak
garden.
and hold. Not quite rain, but yeah. It's the right idea. Welsh onion or scallions.
Good.
Or on your ramps, that would be a perfect one in that oak tree area where we're talking about maybe putting in a outdoor, fire pit, hangout area, camping spot, down in the cool area off of the high sun where we're going to put in the solar in the building, right? And kind of build your area down there. We also have the showy and common milkweed in this list again.
Yeah.
Asparagus would be really good along those terraced beds, right?
Yeah.
Sea beet has got greens. The greens are edible. That's mesic, so we could maybe put that and see how it does, right?
Turkish Rocket is a form of a
greens and
it's a
the
green.
broccolis. So it I think it's not quite as a developed. It's not a brassica, is it? No, because it's Bueninus orientalis. So it's going to have a bud that you can eat like a broccoli from this note.
Right.
And then the greens, and it's native to Eurasia, so, and it's sun to part shade, so that would be an interesting one to play with.
Good.
I'm not sure what fragrant spring tree is, but it sounds wonderful. And it produces greens.
Hey, that sounds good to me.
Red valerian.
Yeah.
Yeah, herb, greens, sun to part shade, dry to mesic. That would be a good one.
Okay.
Good King Henry.
Yeah.
That would be an excellent one.
Yeah, I've got
And
King Henry.
Some of the, more water areas.
Right.
Chicory, that is an excellent plant that might work in those wetter draw beds. Not sure what colewort is, but we've got that it has the broccoli type bud flowers and the greens.
Sea kale is perennial kale.
Right, and that would be a good one. We've got some seed for that, so we'll see how it goes. Here's
Arugula.
Civet. Yeah, it's the arugula, but it's the wilder version, and it forms more kind of a shrubby herb version, that would be an excellent one to get growing out there because that's just a wonderful green. It's more Mediterranean based, so in his shallow, rocky soils, that is a good one.
Okay.
That is an excellent one. That one just almost has to be done. We have Caucasian Spinach, which is part shade, dry to mesic. Yeah, so that one would be, that's greens and shoots, and it's a vine. That would cover our vine layer. That would be really good.
That's interesting.
We don't have one of those yet. We got the Sunchoke Day Lily. Day Lily would be awesome. It's showy. It looks good in the spring. It comes up early. You know, we can plant that in one area and put some tulips and violets. And violets would be another good one because they're edible. And
what's biscuit root?
Biscuit root. It says North America herb tubers sun dry to mesic.
It's a little spiny, it says. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Then you got the goji berry, right?
Goji would be very good for the shrubs and kind of that shrubby coming up into or topping our beds up there so that we're, going from the flowers on up, right?
Marshmallow. Leaf melon.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
And mulberries in there too.
Yeah, mulberries in there. We're going to try and stay away from, but that'd be a possibility. American lotus. No, it's deep emergent. That won't work. That's deep emergent.
Deep emergent being...
Oh, deep is deep goes down under the water or breaks the surface.
Yeah.
And, that's just not what we have. We don't have ponds.
Ground cherry, yeah. I've got some perennial ground cherry that I'm going to try this year.
Yeah, and that's mesic, so
it's
that's
Denver ground cherry. That's perennial.
I need to look at that because I'm believing that ground cherry is a nightshade.
It is.
Yeah, so people like me who have a nightshade allergy, well, every time we hear it, we go, and we no, we shouldn't do that. Here, we've got pokeweed here, which is, it's a giant herb form, young shoots cooked in 3 water changes. This sounds like it's hard to cook, but this might grow in our area, and it's perennial, right?
It's everywhere at my house. Everywhere.
Right.
The horses eat it, and then or something happens, and then ends up spreading everywhere.
Okay.
I think they eat it and it ends up in their manure.
Here's giant Solomon seal. That's roots, tubers. That's medicinal. That's a high dollar crop. Yeah. That's sun to part shade, which we have a lot of.
I've had a hard time getting Solomon seal seed.
Well, if it shoots and tubers, that probably means that we can get some tubers. And we're looking for perennial and spreading, and that maybe several of us should go in and split that one, right?
Sure.
So you just kind of keep going down through this thing, checking each of the parts, right? There's French sorrel, sheep sorrel. Those are all greens that would work. If we think about some of the flowers and herbs.
Skirt, I just got some seed for that. I'm going to try that out.
Yeah, let's see, what is skirt? It's Asia. It's a herb. The tubers are edible.
Right.
Sun to part shade, wet to mesic. So that's not going to work for this property, really, right?
Correct.
It might work down by the creek if we wanted to put something in down there.
New Zealand spinach. I've driven that. I've grown that before.
That would be a good one for there.
That's good to mix in with your salads.
That's dry to mesic.
And dandelion, of course, grows everywhere.
That's full sun. We'll have some of those bed spots. That might be a possibility.
Stinging nettle.
Wait a minute. Linden, lime, and basswood. The greens are edible.
What's linden, lime, and basswood?
It's called I think linden and lime in London. It's called basswood around where it's a tree. It tends to grow closer to. It does well in the cities. It does well near as you're transferring up out of creeks and stuff.
Sure.
It is a highly workable carving wood.
Okay.
But I didn't know the greens were edible. That would be interesting to learn more about. See, this is what happens. You learn things you didn't know. Stinging nettle. Stinging nettle would be good to have.
Down around the creek.
Possibly. I mean, we're going to think about it, right? Because we're not here a lot, so it has the potential to
Go
go
crazy.
and
Yeah.
that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, depending
Depends on how much if you like to eat nettle.
There are all kinds of also other herbs, right? So we could pull out like Edible Forest Gardens, Volume 2, go to the back of it, and plot out a set of flowers so that we have flowers all year.
Sure.
Because when we were talking about things that can be done on this property, I went to bed and I was starting to fall asleep and I went, I didn't say bees.
Bees, yeah.
How often do you check bees? You don't check bees every day.
Yeah, you don't have to check bees.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
that would
honey,
be...
that's beeswax, that's sugar, that's pollinators on site for the fruit trees that could be there. That's pollinators for all those herbs. So you've got a great place to grow some of those plants that you need pollinated that neglect. Like we could do some great corms there.
Right.
But if we plant a herbal set of flowers through there for the pollinators pulling in the other pollinators, and that are perennials that can be taken to other places and shared with other people.
Sure.
And he doesn't even have to do the bees himself, right? Because he can get a beekeeper to come out there, and if we have that, that's there. That adds to the showiness. So I think that I will probably work through a list. I've been meaning to do that for myself anyway.
Okay.
Because I've been thinking about getting a flower, wildflower, herb, all-season pollinator, milpa type mix for us.
So we'll have a lot of this information and the pictures on the website.
But see, we're not even experts on this, right?
No.
We just pulled out the chart from a good resource. And we walked down it. We have more ideas than we have time to implement.
Right.
We have more ideas than Ken can implement.
Yeah, and then we're also coming up with a bunch of ideas we can implement in our places.
Right. And I've been meaning to print this chart off and start hand copying it into my little notebook here. And this little notebook saved us how much time today?
Yeah, lots.
With the weather information, right? And I'm working on it. I have ideas in here I need to do, and this is probably what I need to spend my most time on this year, is filling in this book. Because this is a spiral bound thing. I've got it here. On the front, I put, your permaculture directives. On the back, I've got your permaculture principles, just so I can review them from time to time, right?
Sure.
But as I keep losing all my documents.
Right.
And I've decided to dedicate one to my plant ideas and making these lists for this area.
Yeah. And then, so if we can do it, you can do it too. So, I mean, basically, we went out and asked questions. And listening, it comes in very important. What's your goals?
And the failures.
And what's your failures?
My failures have been consistent and many. Most people will tell you to put sand into clay to fix the soil.
Right. Not a good idea.
How do you make cob? Sand, clay,
water and clay.
And mulch. I mean, straw.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
What do you do to your garden? You got clay. So you till it, you put sand on, you till it, you put plants in, you mulch it. You come in next spring, you till it or you turn it over. You started making cob.
Bricks.
Yeah, you're making bricks.
Yeah.
That's not what you want to do.
No.
You want to increase humus.
Yeah.
That clay is high mineral, high vitamin content. You need the humus so that it's producing the humic acid. You need the soil life doing that and the humus holding the sponge, right? I know that because I did it wrong.
Correct.
And you know what happens down there if you till that 2-3 years in a row? You have that brick right down there, and the tomatoes stay shallow. And those failures have taught me over and over millions of things. So get out there and fail.
Yep, get out there and fail. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Thriving the Future podcast. Check us out on the web on thrivingthefuture.com. Also, come and join our conversation on Twitter at thrivingthefute, and on our Telegram group, there's a link on the website. This podcast was produced by Scott the Freedom Farmer at freedomfarmer.net. Copyright 2022, thrivingthefuture.com.
Join us at the Homestead Journal in living out the classic homesteading ethos on the path towards a simple life that speaks to the heart of humanity. We're an online community embodying and helping our members develop an indestructible homesteading mindset. Become someone who adds walk to the talk and applies proven old world protocols in a modern context. Find us at thehomesteadjournal.net and follow us at thj.net on Twitter.
Are you a freedom farmer? Check out freedomfarmer.net, where I focus on skills over stuff and designing an intentional life. That's freedomfarmer.net. If you are interested in starting a podcast and you would like some consultation, how to find your niche, how to grow your audience, how to develop that consistency, contact me at thrivingthefuture at